Bold. Factual.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Gospel is that there's nothing the US is touching if it doesn't benefit them in one way or another, resource-wise.
Agreed.
Reaganomics is still the order of the day. Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to a lot of the things that needs to be done in the spirit of let's do it. Because when there's this global order after the World War II.
Yeah.
All the countries sat down and they said, heads of state are out of bounds. You cannot go into a country and abduct, because that was an abduction.
Sovereignty, my God.
Yeah. So to avert the sovereignty of the Venezuelan people, much as that they could be said about the leadership of Maduro, it speaks a lot to what needs to be done in terms of regulating law and order, respecting sovereignty and democracy. What really is democracy? And who decides that this is good for that particular country? But we all know there's a lot of politics around the resources. It is said Venezuela holds. Venezuela is our DRC Congo. And one must wonder, why is it that all countries in the world that have a high concentration of resources, there is war?
My dear.
And in all those countries, there is no production of guns. But there is constant supply of ammunition for people to continue. Even Nigeria, look at it. You know? So a lot needs to be done. People, there are different opinions floating about. Some are saying he was a dictator. Others are saying no, the sovereignty matters. And I stand with those who are saying sovereignty, because there has to be instruments on how to empower our people, and people can decide how they want to be led.
What kind of an affront do you think would have been experienced by the United States if it would ever to be a thing where somebody were to walk into Washington,
right,
take over and put you on a plane and cut you off somewhere, if the country would not be up in arms the very next minute? Where would it be the same?
That's a good question.
Absolutely. Those are some of the things that we talk about today, because that's a real situation.
Yeah.
And I think we need to see this for more than it is. That the geopolitics of the day is being played out here on the globe, and it's being, there are many countries which are being used. We can't also run away from the fact that de-dollarization is a phenomenon.
Yes.
It's something that's happening today. The Chinese yuan is being used in more countries than is palatable for the US to imagine.
Right.
And that would happen in a country like Venezuela, where Henry Kissinger in the 1970s negotiated that dollars then be used for all of these transactions. And it would seem as though many countries are heading in the opposite direction, in this case, east. It's not something that the US is happy to see happening.
Not happy.
So we must see this for what it really is.
And Venezuela is going to be another playground like Ukraine. Remember, Ukraine did not go to war with Russia, but it's the US and the Russia, then they decided this is where they want to play their game. Now we have China and US coming to play in Venezuela. And the other question that a lot of people are not talking about is how an entire security system of Venezuela was compromised.
Come on.
And then a president was picked from his bedroom. No resistance at all. So there's a lot in play, and as you say, this is a global phenomenon. The decolonization of all people needs to be accelerated. Because again, who is to say what is going to happen to the Brazilian president? Who is to say who is going to happen to the Colombian? And remember, this is not the first time. We had the Cuba situation for a long time, but the world went quiet. We must now not start assuming that if it's not happening to our continent or our country, then all is well. Who would have thought that this would have gone on to happen in Venezuela? And one would ask, why can't US just do what they're doing? If they're really exporting peace, why have they not exported peace to Haiti? Right?
Exactly.
So there are a lot of questions therein, but we must agree that we cannot abdicate our duty as citizens of the globe to one country deciding what is democracy and what is peaceful and how you should be led.
As it must be in part in terms of that conversation. The headline on the Standard this morning, even as we wait for Professor Shofi to get here, as we're talking into the state of the nation, is that the question is that who's next? Because President Donald Trump said very clearly yesterday that these guys in Colombia, it's almost as though he was talking about kids in a playground and how somebody's not playing according to the rules of the jungle gym. And he said said, who's next? Because this guy in Colombia, he's not acting right.
Yeah.
And, we can teach him a lesson. He said the same thing about Cuba and Mexico. But look at those nations as well. Rich in resources, for whom there needs to be some control of those resources by the US. And is that a need? Yes, it is. Because if you control the money, you have the power. Yes. Those are the rules of the game.
Yes.
And here we are looking at countries, again, like Haiti. What's happened in Haiti? What control has there been over the years in terms of what has happened there?
Yeah.
And then you're going to ask yourself the question, if there needs to be a recolonization of the world, if the geopolitics needs to lean in the way where power is then moved from east back to west, because if we don't know that power has shifted, then perhaps we're living on Jupiter. But the power over time has shifted east. Because economies have grown and they've taken control.
Yeah.
In this clamor for the US to gain back its position, this is what we see. That if you can take over countries and you can take over government, that you have some kind of power. You do have might.
Right.
And we can't run away from those realities. But is it going to be a who next situation? Is Africa going to be the playground where this is going to happen? We know, for example, that during the Cold War was fought on African soil.
Yes.
That's how it played out. Are we going to see that happening again?
No, we need to stand up and redefine all that, because it should not be a crime to stand up against the West. What they say, that if you're not with us, you're against us.
Right.
That's what they did in the Middle East. Remember the Afghanistan story. This is how it started. They went there to clear up the Taliban and many other subgroups. But then that just grew up into something different. There was the Kashmir, there was Pakistan.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been any real substantive peace since they went there. But this issue of trying to neutralize their threats, imaginary or otherwise, should not come in at the cost of the entire of the world. Venezuela has a population of people who need to survive and have a constitution that will lead them as they wish to be led.
Indeed.
If they decide not to lean towards the West and lean towards the East, that should not be a crime.
Indeed, it should not.
Yeah.
And that geopolitical situation then brings us to a localized conversation that we'll be having about Kenya, and then what happens after that. We'll be looking into this conversation and the state of the nation with Professor Ngure wa Mwachofi, who joins us this morning as we look into the state of the nation, albeit at 21 past. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Apologies for Mombasa Road in traffic. I would have been here a little on time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Some things New Year, but I guess old things remain the same.
Yes, traffic remains the same.
Well, glad to have you in the Situation Room this morning. We're looking into the state of the nation. We've looked at the state of the world a little bit in terms of what's happening in some aspects of that, and we're going to bring that home to then be able to say, okay, well, what's happening here? New Year, but that things did not start subtly. But we're going to look into that. As we do, we'd like to start off with today's proverb. Our proverbs this week come from Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso used to be called Upper Volta. And it was the home country of the famous Thomas Sankara, who had a vision for the states of Africa. This proverb today is an interesting one. We'd like to get your interpretation of it. And it says, when the ants unite their mouths, they can carry an elephant. When the ants unite their mouths, they can carry an elephant. What are your thoughts around that?
I agree totally that we are looking at ants as very tiny, and the elephant being the giant that it is. And yet unity is strength. When they unite, they become strong enough to be able to carry an elephant, which applies very well to any situation in our world today, where you think that people have problems because they are not united oftentimes, and divide and rule has been the way. Leaders have tended to control. Leaders who like to control as opposed to leaders who like to lead.
Right.
They prefer to have that opportunity to divide the ants.
But the ants can come together.
They can come together.
For sure. Let's jump into our conversation this morning, shall we?
Yes.
The state of the nation, Kenya, where it is today, obviously it's the penultimate year before an election, 2027, and it would seem as though the politics of the day are ruling the roost.
Yeah.
The economy of the country, many have opinions about how that's going, but the opinion of those who are able to put a meal on the table probably is the one that should be listened to the most. Children are going back to school in a time where the straits are dire for many a parent, and with all of this, the government of the day is saying that the first world or the developed world is where things are headed. The politics, even before they have an opportunity, have gotten nastier in a few days than they have the whole year. And these are coming from the mouths of people where others have pulled guns on others, and, you know, others have accused others of stealing money that was meant for a thing or two. So that's what it looks like off it. But if you look at it from a governance point of view, what would you say is the state of things 4 years into a new year, a year before an election?
Do you mean if I was the government and explaining to the Kenyans?
Be who you want to be.
I can't pretend to be the government.
Okay.
I can only look back at actually, I'm remembering a 2022 conversation when my friend David Ndi was here. And you were asking him to explain what is the new vision. And he explained that Kenya comes from a post-colonial experience where everything is organized around capital. And the capital has been successful in making the country run, but everything is done for the elite. So he said it's a very elitistic country, and that their new vision was, we are here to make changes because we are going to focus on finance. We shall try to maintain a reversal of the past. And I remember at the end of that program, he was asked, so what is going to make you succeed? And he explained, well, you see, Rigathi, Gachagua, and I are age mates, and we sort of finished school at the same time. Ruto is a little younger, and we sort of belong to that generation which understands that it is not right to maintain the country the way it has gone. And his examples, he gave several examples, including the expressway, which is built for the elite but not for common people. And what is the state of the place today? I look at it as a total failure in the sense that all promises that were made don't appear to have panned out. And we have a situation where the same corruption, which in that discussion David D called it, that's a lame excuse. Corruption is nothing. And in looking at where we are right now, there's not any difference between what he presented as the past that they are going to change and the failures that we are seeing now, where essentially we have a country in which the ordinary people have no voice and they are living in fear, and fear has become the dominant controlling element. And I think that it's a very clear gap between what the government is claiming versus what is really happening as far as the ordinary citizens are concerned. I mean, I walk around my place, I look at I'm living in Machakos County in Katani, and what do I see? Shops closing, stores closing, people pay rent and they discover within a month there are no customers, so now they quit. Meanwhile, they have lost all their deposit. I'm told they pay 3 months deposit. So they are left with zero. And you walk through most places, you'd find there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 20 stalls, and out of those, only 3 are open. The rest of them are closing. So the situation is quite bad. I mean, really, really dire. And I wish that it was possible for the government to start listening to what the real situation is out there. But it doesn't end there, because I have a second component in which I think one of the biggest failures is the extent to which citizens have cowered down to total silence. And people are like, you don't talk. If you talk, you'll be removed. In fact, I get phone calls, and the first thing is, oh, I'm glad to hear your voice, Bwana. You know, we are very concerned, you guys who are outspoken, when we hear you, that at least we know you are alive. So be careful, Bwana. And I'm thinking we are really suffering from a psychological state as a country, mentally sick. How so? Well, because we have fallen silent. And when we fall silent, what happens? The government becomes the rhetorician, constantly creating impressions that everything is going to be okay. And it is not.
Well, Prof, you put it very clearly that promises were made.
Yeah.
and the people gave the mandate to that government upon
Yes.
them being elected into office. And then they were expected to implement the agenda,
Yeah.
as you rightly put it, and they had tried to expound it on how they are going to transform this country from the have-nots will have some more, and the haves will pay a bit of more so that we can have sort of an equilibrium. And as Noor puts it, we are almost a year or slightly over a year into another political discourse to decide how we want to be governed. But you realize that in the midst of this term, the people have said what you promised is not what you are getting, and we are not happy with the direction the country is taking. Then the government, who to me they are the employees of the people, that's how I perceive them to be,
Yeah.
have said, no, what you are doing is working. It is you who are not seeing it as you should be seeing it.
Yes.
So there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect. I call it a contradiction. When you promise
Yes.
and then you don't fulfill, that is a contradiction. Number
Or,
one.
or a lie?
A lie,
Oh,
complete
okay.
lie.
Just checking.
Number
Sorry.
two,
Yeah.
I think there's a significant failure right from the beginning. When you say this is a bottoms up, you are saying I'm going to be listening to the citizens and we'll be implementing what the citizens' needs are.
Correct.
And I'll give you my example again from Katani. We have had some road construction around the center. And to use this, to fix the road on the center, they had to divert the road to another place, our place, another road. It's called Hekima. And Hekima is decimated by the trucks that have been passing through.
Yes.
We thought when the other road is finished, they'll come back and fix this other one. Do you know that some people are now calling for fundraiser so that we fundraise again to fix the road?
Wow.
Why should we fundraise for that which the government
Ought to have taken care of.
yeah, primarily because it went down because of them. And the point I want to raise here is that citizens have accepted this mindset that they just can't, there's nothing they can do. And I'm saying there's something that can be done. I don't see the reason why we can't get together and see the governor of Machakos and say this is not right.
But even as you do that, because especially when you talk of contracts, whenever there is the diversion of traffic,
Yeah.
there has to be contingency measures that will be employed after to make
Exactly.
sure everything is taken back to what it was.
Yes.
And I hope you, the Machakos people, get to experience the relief that you do deserve.
Yeah.
But back to now to the national state of looking at that promises were made, they have been broken, they have not been honored. And whenever people have tried to speak out, like yourself and others,
Yeah.
they've been told, no, you're making noise, then you have to deal with you. People have been dealt with, some to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
We've seen the the uprising that led to the ongoing revolution. I'm holding the opinion that there is an ongoing silent revolution that hopefully will end in the ballot of 2027. But when you say people are silent, do you feel the palpable anger, the social angst that they are saying, in spite of you trying to silence us, we are organizing, but is that organizing taking shape and form as it should?
If I worked for the NIS, I would say yes or no, but
Yeah.
I can say I know for a fact.
Right.
What I'm most surprised at is the idea that people know the ship is sinking. It's leaking. It's going to sink in the end.
Right.
So the question is, how does fear help you to avoid saying this ship is sinking? Because ultimately it will sink anyway. So how about you get up and talk and organize and make sure that you don't allow a second term for the president, specifically because he has failed. And if he honors and he remembers swearing to the Constitution that I swear to uphold the Constitution, which is really making sure that the Kenyan people are safe and that their welfare is taken care of, then people should be able to speak up and make sure that this happens. Because my point is that fear is the opportunity given to the government to continue to maintain these conversations that
Indeed.
things are going to be okay, and they will not be okay. And so the point is really our fear does not save us. The Constitution is very clear that we are allowed to speak.
Yes.
And I'm speaking because the Constitution allows me to do that.
Correct.
I think it's Article 37, yeah, freedom of expression.
Right.
And there's no reason for people to be living in fear, because the more you do that, the more you maintain the status quo. And I think that people should have conversations from the grassroots level where people in a community are talking about what their needs are, and they don't have to be out there the way the Gen Zs were and I don't mean that Gen Zs were wrong. It is the government that was wrong in killing those that they killed. And I'm saying this because the more people believe that there's nothing that can be done, the worse the situation will be. And I don't think there's anything that can save Kenyans except rising and speaking up. We are looking at a legislature which has been compromised. It's like we don't have a legislature at all.
We don't.
Why?
It's interesting that you said, I'm sorry, I just want to pick up on something that you said, is that
Please.
you said that the ship is sinking or that it's leaking.
Yes.
But we are just watching watching the leaking thing.
Yes.
We're not even trying to put a bucket on the floor to collect the water or trying to fill the hole.
Or scoop that water out. So it doesn't feel...
Is that the position of Kenyans from what you're seeing, that things are not all right, but that Kenyans seem to have adopted a lackadaisical approach to all of this and just kind of, okay, let's see what happens tomorrow? Is that the case?
I would say that they have taken that lackadaisical approach mainly because of fear, and the fear makes them think you are fine in the short term. But if they are looking at the short term, long term, I'm thinking about my grandchildren. You know, what kind of life are they going to have if we don't get concerned about that? What is so useful about me being alive now or safe now if I'm safe to a situation which is horrible? I mean, everybody dies to start with. So the fear of dying is one that I think that people have to overcome by realizing that, first of all of us are going to die at some point. And that the question is, what do we do from the time you are born until you die? You do good things. What is one of the good things? Well, the Constitution requires us to be good custodians of this country. And being a good custodian means speaking the truth.
Well, and those who embrace the spirit of the Constitution and the spirit of liberation and creating a better country for all of us. Gen Z set a good example. They say the fear is gone. And I do agree with you. Fear is not a plan. Fear is not a strategy. Fear is not actionable until it is directed to something. And then you say, this is what I'm going to change because I don't want to continue existing in this same fearful state. But Gen Z set up the pace. They said, fear is gone. However, you do have a section of Kenyans who say, no, we don't want demonstrations. We don't want you coming out to the streets. You are too young, you need to wait. When you come out to protest, our businesses are run down. But these people who are saying that, they forget that the taxes they are paying are the ones that are being misappropriated, are the ones that are continuing to finance the corruption, because corruption is financed. We have to provide finances for them to be mismanaged. And all of us, in one way or the other, we provide those finances to the country, to the president, only that he does not direct the resources as he should. What do we say to those people who are not willing, perhaps from lack of understanding or from just a myopic view of things and wanting to feel safe for now, not willing to pay the price for the long haul, who come out and say, no, we don't want those dissenting voice?
I'll tell them, first of all, wake up. Wake up to the reality that you cannot expect change while you sit down. Number two, I'll just give you a real example. A young man visited me some time ago and we talked. So he told me, you know, I would like to be part of the demonstrations, but my parents have warned me. They told me, if there's anything like that, run away, avoid being part of that story. So those parents, I'm speaking to them and telling them that's the wrong approach. Because first of all, you are undermining the Constitution. You should be speaking for the right of people to speak, as opposed to telling them they must not be involved. Number two, how many parents have their kids die from car accidents and other things? How different is that? And the difference is when your child dies because they were actually involved in a legitimate story, you cannot blame the child for having been there. We should be ashamed for not joining them. In fact, I would argue that if citizens joined and were clearly organized around this idea, there's no reason why this would continue forever. And secondly, it is a question of realizing that the longer you wait, the more formidable the task becomes. When I hear people saying, I'm not interested in voting next time because it doesn't make a difference, I'm thinking, well, you are helping the system to prevail. I mean, they can just decide to continue because there are no elections, because nobody came to vote. People have to come up to recognize that you cannot change your life by sitting down. The best example I give is two people.
Yes.
They have an acre of land each. And every morning, John wakes up, go to his plot and works very hard. Plowing, weeding, and all that. And the other one wakes up and goes to the plot, but lays down there and just praying. And you tell me in 6 months who will be harvesting?
Yes, John will have a bumper harvest.
Yeah. So
and not courtesy of subsidized fertilizer.
Yeah.
It's courtesy of his hard work.
And I'm saying this because when you look at the rhetoric of government,
Right.
you know, we have a national prayer day. We are praying for our nation. It seems that there's a desire to present it like there's a malaise, there's a disease out there that is bothering our country and we're going to fix it. I had Ruto speaking the other day. He was explaining, we are not going to allow these things to continue. We are going to put 5 trillion shillings to make sure that we have real changes. This country is going down. And I'm thinking, well, who should be being spoken to? Are you telling the citizens or the citizens should be telling you? Number 2, how much debt does the country have right now and where are you going to get your 5 trillion from? Why have you, in these 3 years that you have been in power, why haven't we seen anybody arrested or jailed? And how can you be talking about corruption when citizens have been complaining about so many things from this airport controversy and the people who work there are thinking of going on strike because it is said that the Adani deal is still under chini ya maji, is still going on. And I think these are real things. I used to talk to members of parliament and I find that these days they avoid me. Why? Because I tell them the truth. I tell them, you guys have failed, you have been bought, and you're not interested in the welfare of the citizens, and you should be ashamed of earning money when you know clearly that you're not serving your country.
Then there is another lot, because as you say, this is the beginning of a year where things ought to be shaping up.
Yes.
As we warm up to how we want the country to look like in this year and towards the ballot.
Yeah.
I have, and everybody knows this, that there is this collection of politicians who have been rejected by the powers that are in office. And now they've formed a coalition of the deputies. That's how I perceive them to be. The impeached deputy president and his compatriots.
Yeah.
And the rhetoric they are driving seems to be not going anywhere, you know, because all you hear is the insults, the sloganeering.
Yeah.
Is this what the country needs? Because again, I listen to another section of the countries who are saying we do not perceive them to be the opposition. The real opposition today is we, the people.
True.
And we, the people, shall have our own presidential candidate.
Yeah.
Shall chart the path that we want to take towards the ballot. But what do you make of this united coalition of the deputies?
I see, on the one hand, too much desire for people to be in power. And being in power, being an objective, it means they have to look for whatever strategy they can have, and they recognize that unity is strength. That's why they are working as united. The bigger question that has missed throughout, and I would say throughout from the time Kenya has been independent, you know, I happen to be lucky. I lived in the first 10 years of colonial Kenya, and I watched independence. I was in class 3, and the kinds of hopes we had, they have all been dashed. Why? Because people are interested in being in power. So in my view, we are living in a psychological state of a transition from colonial time. Then colonialism is over, supposedly. But people who took over are doing exactly what the colonialists had the agenda for. It's like saying, I don't like how we are being treated, but once I'm in there, I try these shoes, oh, they feel nice. I think things are okay. And that's wrong. You can't run a country like that.
Right.
So these people that you are referring to who have a coalition, if they are very serious, what they will be doing right now is organizing with the communities, making sure that the communities are clear. But it will be wrong for the communities to expect these people to organize for them when they have failed them so many times. And so I think it's the communities that ought to organize to make sure that these people are not anywhere. You know, every time I listen to politicians, what do I hear? Oh, we are going to make sure that we remove this man. Well, removing this man is one, but the mindset of the whole country is different. People are living in fear. We have to overcome that, number one. Number two, people have to be organized to the idea that things don't change, we change things.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And if you change things, it means being concerned and making sure that you actually are working towards those changes.
Things don't change, we change things. It's interesting that you say this, because then I have to go back to the mind of the people.
Yes.
And if whether it is a unique situation in Kenya, whether it is a unique situation across the continent, then perhaps we need to interrogate this a little bit more. That I cannot get out of my mind the image of grown men and women taking sweets last year in the run to a by-election. And I judged that for a while. I judged it and I said, how can we have brought ourselves so low to the place whereby how can this leader have disrespected Kenyans so much and give them sweets and imagine that was enough for their vote and they accepted?
Yeah.
But then my thought landed on those last two words. They accepted.
Yes.
So what is the state of the nation as concerns the people of Kenya? Because I wouldn't blame that politician anymore.
Let me answer that
because she gave, coming from a place where she knew that they would accept.
They will accept.
So it is the mind of the Kenyan.
Yes.
Either it has been conditioned to the point whereby a little is enough to sell your birthright, but we are accepting of the below mediocre.
True. Allow me.
So who's the problem?
Yes, allow me to answer that question by taking you back to my profession as a philosopher. First of all actions, everything we do comes from how we think. So in other words, I'm saying thought precedes action. So our choices are products of how we think. Colonialism was managed by making sure that people think they are inferior, number one, and that the English people are the superior. And these people have taken over the same idea and making sure that they plant that thought that, number one, there's nothing you can do. Number three, we are going to be running this country. And every time you hear the president speak, he normally starts by saying, I have decided. You know, I have decided means that I am the one who knows what is happening everywhere. If only he wanted to be in position of power in the most legitimate form, you know how he would have legitimized himself by now? By making sure that he has channels where ordinary people have abilities to explain themselves. And this is my version, by the way. My version is that when you're looking at an MCA in one area, he's in charge of several communities. So he's in charge of those communities. How does he make sure that those communities filter all their priorities to him so that when he's in the county assembly, he's actually representing the voices and the needs of the people? And if that was happening, you can be sure that there will be a clear decisions that people are making because they are thinking of improving their situations. But when we continue in the same mindset, to answer your question, why do they accept? They accept because they feel hopeless and they feel that the only thing they can do is to accept whatever they are being given, including bribes when they are given 50 bob or a pack of unga to go and vote for somebody.
But do people know you can have better? I mean, and because this is the thing.
They can have better?
Yeah, because this is the thing that when there are calls for civic education, Prof, and we talk about things like this all the time, is there a situation of awareness where people are in touch with the reality that this is what a member of the county assembly should actually be delivering for you? That when a member of parliament comes and says, I will build this road, do people know actually you won't? Because that's not your job. Well, that is not what a member of parliament is supposed to do.
I hear people
Our people are aware of the fact of the three roles that a member of parliament is supposed to actually play, so that when somebody comes and tells you, I will build a road for you, or I will do this, that people can actually retort and say, actually, no, that's not what we want you to do. We want you to go and do 1, 2, 3. Go make a budget that makes sense. Go legislate over matters so that when the controller of budget comes to you, or when the auditor general comes to you and say you've overspent, send somebody to jail, or that you've mismanaged funds, go legislate so that you can send somebody to be accountable for that money which they have stolen, not taken or mismanaged, stolen. So that when somebody comes and says, I will build a road, you say, sorry, sir, that is not what you're supposed to be doing. These three things, and under that umbrella, is what you're supposed to be doing. Are people aware?
I can say I'm hearing those conversations already. So when they hear somebody says, Munaona nimewafanyia hivi, they are very clear. It's not from your pocket. first of all, and number two, this is what you are supposed to have done, so you don't have to be saying, recognize me, I've done this. Number two, people are clear that money is being stolen, because if it is not being stolen, where are the projects? Yeah, we have overinflated projects. So people are aware, but when we say people, we are generalizing that everybody is aware. And I'm saying this because when I ask people, have you ever read the Constitution? Not too many say they have. Can you name anything that you know from the Constitution? They would say we have the right to speak, and that's about it. People don't follow the Constitution enough to know that Chapter 6 is about integrity, public participation, the next, and all these chapters are really meant to do that.
So people are not making decisions based on leadership that they imagine will go and do certain things that will make the country better. Is that what we're saying?
People have not woken up to the fact that, number one, people should be educated so that they know their rights clearly, not just from what they hear on TV. The Constitution is a small book. It is available online. You could just download it on your phone and you can read different sections by and by and get to understand. So my answer is people have not reached that critical point of saying now something has to be done. In fact, what you hear most of the time is, hey, I don't know who is coming to serve us. I don't know who bewitched us. So there's always an attempt to have an external explainer of what do you think has happened to us. And I'm like, wake up. It is you who needs to do something.
For a person like you, Prof, who has seen this country go through the first two critical liberations.
Yes.
There was the Mau Mau move that brought us the independence.
Yes.
Which you see some countries are fighting for, like Sudan and all that. They're not yet stable.
Yeah.
Then came the second liberation, where you were part of the fight for our human rights, which, accumulatively gave birth to the new constitution.
Yeah.
What happens such that a people decide, like the Mau Mau did? They left the comfort of their homes, their wives, everything nice and sweet about life that was happening then.
True.
And they went to fight. And a lot of them knew they may not come back.
True.
And a lot of them did not go back to their homes, but it gave birth to a new country.
Yes.
Then in the 90s, the same happened. People were tired of the one rule of the one late President Moi. And they came out to the streets. They were not mobilized. They were not paid.
They were ready. Yote yawezekana bila Moi.
Yawezekana bila Moi. They came out. They agitated. We saw horses for the first time out in the streets, trying to clamp down people. What is this that happens that finally triggers our people? Like the same thing happened with the Gen Z, but you see now it's kind of quieting down. But what is it, from your opinion, happens where our people must say enough is enough? We are going to fagia wote, yote yawezekana, and then we reset the country on a trajectory that we want to see it. What is it that must happen, or what happens?
I'll answer that by using physics.
Right.
That everything requires to meet a certain condition for change to happen. So number one, boiling water. It has to reach a certain point, then you begin to see vapor. So the idea, and I think it's Karl Marx who said, the people's consciousness is a product of their material conditions. As the material conditions continue to degenerate, these leaders are going to wake up to a surprise, something very similar to that, because they'll reach what we call critical mass.
Yes.
Critical mass is the temperature that makes water boil. Critical mass is the temperature that makes water become ice. Everything has a stage. So human beings are going through that experience. And I think in Kenya, we are very, very close, if not there already. And so what is required?
What would be the indicators, of that, critical mass point? What would be the indicators? What do you see? Because I see people still applauding for not even bad, deplorable governance and leadership. I see people not being... And then people ask, why do you get so upset? And I ask the question, why don't you? Why would you be accepting? And I think there are certain pictures from 2025 that stick hard and fast in my mind.
Yeah.
That when I see a picture of a woman on the ground using a shallow bowl to get water out of the ground, that is the color of the skin, that is going to be used for cooking and washing.
Yes.
And you're not fed up with a situation like that.
True.
Or that there are 110 children in a classroom not bigger than the size of this studio, and a teacher has to stand outside a window because there's no space in the class to teach. She or he teaches from the window.
Yeah.
And I don't see that people are upset about that. And they say, no, don't put it in the lungs because, I don't know, some drama. But you must be upset about such a thing in order for some kind of change to take place. I don't see people up in arms.
Well, I think that when we generalize people, we mean everybody. Nobody is feeling it.
No, I think they're feeling it. I just don't see a record. Because you talk about when you've reached critical mass, there's a boiling that must take place.
Yes.
That boiling we don't see. Or there's a freezing that must take place. Do we see it to the point whereby a shift will happen?
It has not happened to everybody yet. And for some, it is already happening, but it is simmering in there. They're waiting for somebody to do something. You remember the Arab Spring, Tunisia? What it took was for a young man to light himself up.
Right.
Yes.
And the next thing is the whole change took place right there.
Right.
So it is simmering.
Okay.
And the balloon is getting closer and closer to exploding. And what is happening every now and then is that you have a member of parliament or somebody who goes and puts a little pin to deflate it so that it doesn't reach that critical mass. And how do you find, what do I mean by that? When you have people who say, everything is fine. Remember when Raila got into power with Ruto? The Luos were saying, now Ruto is a good man. We have the opportunity to eat. That's a pin in the balloon. And I think now we can argue that despite the pin, the balloon has reformed and the pressure is getting back. It is very unfortunate that people are guided purely by their selfish desire. And I think I should talk a little bit about desire. May I?
Yes,
just
please.
to clarify the role of desire. Desire, in my view, can be positive or negative. I have a desire to study, to get a good job. I have a desire to help friends, and so on and so on. But the desire I'm referring to is the selfish desire, the unexamined desire. You know, Socrates said, unexamined life is not worth living. And I'm adding that unexamined desire is the mother of selfishness, and that's the mother of corruption. So what is keeping people? Well, even citizens who are suffering, as long as they have a desire to survive and they think the only thing they can do is to be in good books with the ruling system, then they are becoming victims of their own desire, because they are looking at the short term and their desire keeps them from raising hell, if I may use that word. And so desire is my thesis for explaining why the world is the way it is. And it's not just in the case of Kenya, but the global story. The Europeans, the colonialists had a desire to control. They used all kinds of mechanisms, language, and the structures that they put in place. So we are experiencing structural violence in Kenya, where people are boxed into situations and their own desires to save themselves, the fear and desire are related. The desire to save yourself means you have to be quiet, not understanding that by being quiet, you're actually undermining your own self.
Correct.
So what keeps people from speaking? Because they have this false sense of safety by being silent. And as they realize more and more, and I would argue that people who have lost their children during the Gen Z revolution, or in the case of Albert, I don't think that those people are even having second thoughts about there's nothing we can do. They are as mad as hell, and they are looking for an opportunity for things to change.
It's true, and the unexamined desire that you speak of is clearly playing out, because they're beneficiaries of this regime.
Yes.
And they're the ones who are shouting from the top of the mountain, telling people, no, all is well, all is going to be well. Whoever is telling you otherwise is just a distractor.
Yes.
Who does not mean well for us. And us, in that case, is them who are the beneficiaries of the regime.
And that includes a member of parliament who goes to tell the people, "Nyinyi msipige kelele, mambo yanaendelea kuimprove."
Indeed.
Just give the president some more time. And this is a good example of how their own desire to be in good books and to maintain their jobs makes them feel like they should be quiet because everything is fine. Everything is not fine. It is fine in your own desirable form, because essentially what we are saying is we have a structure that has now been occupied by people who are benefiting, and they know the government is a place where if you have a good job, you have all guarantees, you have a driver, a bodyguard, your kids are taken to school because you are a cabinet secretary or whatever, all those privileges. Those are examples of desires that are blinding. Those are examples of desire that, in my opinion, explain what selfishness is about. Yeah.
And back to the critical mass, we would expect then, as Ndu was saying, that as it's building up, there are some indicators. There ought to be some very active and visible indicators that indeed a people or the people are fed up and they are working towards something. We don't see that. Case in point, the sort of lacking or slow or ongoing, very slowly, the voter registration. You see, the parents ought to let their kids know that it is a civic duty to go and register as a voter.
True.
And then those who are of age need to realize that indeed, for me to help my parents become better,
I have to.
Because everything revolves around a government that we set up by voting.
But then you have the same parent who's telling child,
yes,
I don't want to see you anywhere near those places. Yeah? So you have a mix of things, some clarity in some areas and lack of clarity in other areas. Because again, desire is such a mystery to a lot of people, because oftentimes we are not aware that the reason we are making a particular speech is because we are being pushed by our own desire.
Indeed.
And so what I'm pushing for, and I'm speaking to members of parliament, judiciary, and all that are involved, to start examining what is it that makes you make a decision in a particular form. And in asking that, I'm asking them to examine their desires. Because an examined desire, as I've pointed out, is the mother of selfishness, and it's the root cause of corruption, and it's the reason why we are where we are right now, because people are trying to be safe. They are desiring to be safe.
Well, so if we don't desire to fagia water, to drain the swamp, to build a better country, it is not going to happen.
One more point.
Right.
I think that it is quite conceivable that people are there already. And to answer your question, why are we not seeing it? Part of it is because people are careful. They don't want to be shouting that this is how I'm feeling and this is what must be done. I mean, walk to a bar or some open place and you say, Ruto must go. And you see some people get very angry with you, like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. In other words, people are feeling it, but they prefer to be quiet about it because they are just waiting for what I mentioned, the moment of Tunisia, the Tunisia moment.
Well, it may never come until somebody actually does light himself up, like it did happen in Tunisia. That's it. Well, look, I mean, these conversations are necessary for us to have. I think it would be interesting to see if by the end of January, if 1 million people registered to vote, those would be some of the indicators that we see that people are actually understanding that they can activate their sovereignty. They can activate their power by registering and actually coming out and voting. Because if 200,000 votes tip the scales in the last election, you can imagine what 1 million would do if it is people who are making a decision.
But it's important for the leadership to understand that even if people didn't vote at all and they ended up getting a second term, that they'll be moving into a second term when things are worse. Think of it as an analogy where you have firewood has been drying for a while. We didn't light it up now, so it continues to dry. And I'm saying the fire will be even worse in that case.
You're not the first one who said it, and it seems that that's the position that a lot of folks are taking, that look for a worse situation if you don't take into consideration the thoughts of the people. Professor Ngure Mwachofi, thank you for being here with us this morning, having a conversation around some of these things, enlightening us, and to then be able to give more reasons as to why we must all be part of this discourse. How about that for a challenge, folks? 1 million people registered by the end of February. Let's carry that through and see how it can actually happen. We'll talk more and keep the conversations going. It's 9:02. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only